this is the elephant in the room. I'm going to ask you flat out. Are you suing Timbaland on behalf of K-Fresh? What is going down? We have Ryan Smith. First of all, Ryan, thank you so much, because this is the second time you've given your time to record a video for me.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. It's been crazy, scheduling, and I'm sure it's been crazy with you too, but I've been making a lot of content just responding to the legal AI developments mostly, and then all the news that's coming out, and your name keeps coming up.
Well, hopefully that's a good thing.
Well, you tell me, has there been a backlash?
I think there's a few people that have been like, why do you hate AI so much? Why are you trying to stop AI? And I think it's part of it's a messaging thing. I think I'm not trying to stop AI. I'm trying to help have this conversation like you are and so many other people, that AI can exist in a world that also respects intellectual property rights of creators.
Why do you think that people personalize AI so much? Because I do feel like when you criticize AI, and you can be as specific as possible, and say specifically, hey, I don't like that AI is training without consent on copyrighted materials. Why then is the response generally either an insult or, it's almost as though you're insulting these people's family members when it's AI? It's a framework. It's a technological framework owned by people they will never meet. Why is it so personal to people?
There's a few different reasons, I think. One is if we look at creators who are using AI that weren't creating without AI tools. Somebody that's using Suno, that's using a Midjourney or something, that wasn't a graphic designer, who wasn't a photographer, who wasn't your traditional musician. They have an extreme sense of ownership over the work that they've created through that. And so they feel very protective of that. And they think that anybody that is trying to put some boundaries and regulations on AI is trying to take away this thing that they love, that they can finally express themselves through. That's one side of it. The other side, I think, is just what we've been talking about, that people seem to think that anybody that wants to have ethical AI be the framework is trying to slow down innovation, is trying to deny that the future is coming, and that they're anti-technology. And there's people that are like, AI is going to democratize XYZ. We're gonna be more efficient. Why wouldn't you use AI? That's all well and good. Can't we just prioritize and support the AI that is doing things the right way?
See, and I don't even hear that usually. I usually just hear the first part. AI is going to level the playing field. It's going to democratize. You don't even, not you personally, but the people saying that can't even define what a democracy is, because this is an oligarchy. It's an extension of, isn't there something called a technocrat? It's something like that, where the people with the money and the platform and the technology control everything. That's not the same as a democracy. And democracy is not built on the theft of human assets, I don't believe. But I think a lot of people, I think there have been studies that show people with lower intelligence tend to respond with anger to adversity or challenges and disagreements. So we can move on. I just want to ask some very direct questions, because I've been making a lot of videos about this stuff, and I am not qualified to speak from a legal perspective. I only can speak from my experience and my concerns as a creator. But first and foremost, as a lawyer, is AI data scraping legal? Like taking other people's stuff, training on it, and then selling it?
I've always believed that it wasn't legal. I always have believed that it is no different than downloading, and anything that was previously illegal under the US Copyright Act is still, that framework still applies. And now the Copyright Office has kind of agreed with what I believe and what the RIAA and the labels have also said, that basically we don't need a whole new US Copyright Act. We can litigate these AI issues under the existing laws, because what was somebody's intellectual property doesn't just get thrown out with the bathwater just because there's this new technology called AI. And what we saw with the third US Copyright Office report on generative AI was that they don't believe, the U.S. Copyright Office does not believe that scraping in and of itself is just fair use. They've rejected this idea that it's just the same way that people learn, that you can just listen to music, so they can scrape music, and that's just the same exact thing. The U.S. Copyright Office said it's a more nuanced case-by-case study. Was what they learned and what that final product, was that transformative for it to be fair use? In this situation like a Suno or Udio, they said that those things are going to be less likely to be transformative because what you're doing is you're training a model on music to make a product that makes music. So the input is competitive with the output. If you're training your model, and this is what the Anthropic decision also said, was if you're training your model on, say, books, but you're creating a chat bot, that very well could be transformative and fair use because it's not a one-to-one. You're not training on books to create books.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but one provision of fair use is that it's not a for-profit endeavor, right? Like you can't just invoke fair use after you've made billions of dollars and say, oh no, it's fair use. But a teacher who's not making shit can say, well, it is fair use because I made copies of an old novel to distribute to my students.
Yeah, there are several factors, including the purpose of the use, the nature of the use, and the effect of that use on the commercial marketplace for the underlying work, which is that commercial part. If it's nonprofit, if it's commentary, if it's news reporting, that's going to be more likely fair use. If it is being commercialized and it competes with the work that it was trained on or it's supposed to transform, then that's more likely to not be fair use.
This is why it's like talking to a wall, because people just love to throw around the term fair use. I know producers love to throw around the term fair use and say, well, if I sample a beat and sell it, that's fair use. There is a lot of talk and speculation about this. I've seen videos titled Timbaland is being sued. This is the elephant in the room. I'm going to ask you flat out. Are you suing Timbaland on behalf of K-Fresh?
No, there's no active lawsuit right now. I wouldn't want to speculate. That would prejudice his future options. But that letter really was written in a way to have a public conversation and get an apology and accountability.
So I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know what? Forget my feelings. Do you feel like the apology and the accountability happened?
I believe that I believe that there was an apology. I believe there was a statement, and I believe that there was some accountability. Will I agree with every last thing that was put in there or how it was framed? Of course not.
So, in a nutshell, what happened with K-Fresh from a and use legal terms?
So, from our perspective, we look at, as a lawyer, I look at the Copyright Act. And the Copyright Act gives the creator of a work certain rights. They're called a bundle of rights under Section 106. The right to reproduce, to distribute, to create derivative works, to perform publicly. And this is why anybody that's a copyright owner can monetize and protect their intellectual property. So what we have here with this K-Fresh thing is he puts one of his beats up on a YouTube video. That gets remixed by a singer named C-Red. Timbaland sees this mashup and he loves it and he feeds it into Suno and he does a remix. And when you download, just like the RIAA was suing people back in the day of Napster downloads, when you download something without permission, that's copyright infringement. When you upload it into a model to be trained, that's also the right to reproduce. That's what the U.S. Copyright Third Report on AI said, and that's why we have these lawsuits, and that's why Top Music Attorney is doing her lawsuit. That there is infringement in the training of itself, and then to prepare a remix and a derivative work, and then to perform that derivative work through a video. We believe that there was 4 or 5 different ways that this was infringement, and so that video went public, and there was no permission behind that. There was no tagging. There was no, hey man, I really like this. I was inspired by it. And from what I've seen and what I've heard from K-Fresh, his biggest issue was that this was somebody that had the opportunity to shout him out and to give him a little bit of a spotlight in using this, and that didn't happen. And so the letter was really a way to say, let's make things right, and let's get that credit, and let's move on from this. Let's use this as a learning experience.
From my perspective, as somebody who has done a lot of sync, this was a sync license, right? I mean, Timbaland was using he was using K-Fresh's beat to advertise a product that he has a stake in. So it'd be like the same as Nike using my beat in a little piece of Instagram content to promote their new shoe line. They have to pay for that. That's just how sync licensing works. I guess that would be considered a micro sync, but still that requires written permission and usually comes with payment to the creator.
Absolutely. Anytime you marry any type of audio work to moving images, yeah, you do need to get a sync license for that.
So I feel like that's just such a clear cut case. AI taken out of it entirely. If Timbaland had just said, you know what, I'm going to reproduce someone else's beat without permission to advertise a new VST, or if I took an old sample from the 70s and used it in a commercial to advertise my new drum kit and say, look how I can flip this sample, I would be infringing their copyright and I could be held legally responsible for that.
Yes. So yeah, that's a perfect way of looking at it. If you take AI out of it, what was infringement before AI is still infringement with AI.
What are the next steps then? Do you still represent K-Fresh? Are you still attempting to recover any sort of damages from this situation?
Like I said, I don't want to speak on anything that's going to prejudice him. I do feel like he was happy with the outcome of that response. And I don't think at this time that he wants to take it any further, but we'll see.
Have there been benefits that you've spoken to him about that he's received from this situation? I mean, is there a silver lining here?
He hasn't directly said. I mean, I think that he's a great producer, and I think that a lot of new people were introduced to his music as a result of this controversy. So I think that that's a benefit, that his musicianship was put on full display. It's just an unfortunate way of getting that attention. But the one thing I would say is that he already had a pretty strong following before this, and it wasn't like he just came from 2,000 followers up to 150,000 followers overnight because of this. It was a little bump.
And a lot of people frame it that way and say he should just be happy to get the attention, and that's frankly it's a pile of shit. But something else that's interesting is just this idea that there's this narrative that talented producers will never be affected negatively by generative AI. K-Fresh is incredibly talented. He made that beat. He's so talented, in fact, that he created this 100% original beat using stock sounds from Reason, made it sound organic to the point where people were claiming it was a sample and saying, oh, well, he sampled anyway, he shouldn't be mad, which is also a load of shit. But I keep saying the S word, I'm sorry. But he didn't. And it was so amazing what he created that Timbaland, the legendary producer who has coined so many sounds, I can't, no matter what I feel about Timbaland's AI usage and the way he's kind of making a mockery of the dialogue surrounding it, great, amazing producer who has changed so many lives and has changed music. That doesn't change. Someone as influential and talented and such a visionary as Timbaland was so impressed by K-Fresh's work that he used it to advertise what he considers the next big thing in music. And so this narrative that as long as you make good beats, you'll be fine because you'll be unique. We saw that doesn't mean anything, because all you have to do is find something unique, feed it into Suno, and then I believe, and I'm sure you're pretty acutely aware of what all the various terms in the end user agreement of Suno are. I believe just simply and I've gotten this wrong in the past, but simply uploading a track into their system does potentially train the system. It does. So like putting that K-Fresh beat just one time into the system, now that K-Fresh beat is forever a part of Suno, and they've learned, and now they can produce like K-Fresh.
And that was the issue that we put in that letter. It's because certainly when we read the terms and conditions, we believe that that's the rights that are granted as well. I have actually had conversations with Suno since this whole thing went down, where they say that that's not how they train, that the training data is outside of that. And I'm not really going to go into any more details on those private conversations. But, you know, it's one of those things that's not made public. And I think that there's a opportunity there to fine tune terms and conditions if that's what people are really concerned about. And if that's truly not how you're using it, then update terms. Just like what SoundCloud has previously done, where people were concerned about the language in there and that wasn't their intent. And so they very publicly addressed that and changed their terms.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be the first time that this happened. I believe Spectrasonics faced a big controversy. I don't know if you remember that. This was years ago, where in their terms they prohibited the use of sounds from particularly Omnisphere VST being used in sample libraries. And there was a backlash. But honestly, a lot of companies, a lot of keyboard manufacturers and sound design companies prohibit this. I don't know why. It seems kind of weird, but I think the CEO, I forget on whose channel he said this, but he did a whole PR run where he said, no, please, we don't feel that way. We're going to change that. I just want to let producers out there know you can use Omnisphere in your samples. We will not take legal action against you. And it's such a simple thing. But when I read the terms of service of these AI platforms, there's all this vague legal language where they kind of say, look, we're not doing this, but we could do this. And you're granting us permission for all this potentiality for future actions. Like, we might train on your music, we might not, doesn't matter, because you're granting us permission to do so. That's how I interpreted that. The legalese is so vague. It allows for that.
It's intentionally broad to give as many rights as you can, even if it's not ones you're currently exploiting. And certainly for a company that is so profitable, such as Suno or Udio, they also have to look at how that data and how those terms can help them in a potential future sale or a potential IPO.
So this whole RIAA lawsuit against Udio and Suno, from my understanding, it's still in the discovery phase.